So title and escrow. Escrow is a neutral third party between the bank and everyone else in the transaction. So your realtors, your lenders, home warranty, whoever has a hand in the sale. And essentially we hold on to the money to make sure that when it's dispersed, that the title is free and clear. When we're talking about the title of a property, it means the ownership, the physical ownership and the documented ownership. Something that could affect title is any lien on a property. Could be a tax lien, could be a mortgage that hasn't been paid for a long time, even child support that hasn't been paid for. Anything that could affect the reconveyance of the property, any encumbrances. So basically, like, say for example, you and I were in a poker game, and as my bet, I said, Matthew, I owe you the deed to my house, and I give it to you. And then I'm trying to sell my property to someone else. You could come to me and say, no, I actually mowed the property because of this napkin or because of this note that you wrote me. So basically, it's title's job to make sure that anything that's publicly disclosed, any public information like any liens, child support, there's nothing that could affect the sale of the house.
Hey, what's going on? It's Matthew, and welcome to Henosis. If you enjoy self-development content and you enjoy listening to podcasts or even watching it, then do me a huge favor, subscribe to this channel, comment below any questions or your favorite parts from the episodes or any video that we upload on here. I really appreciate you for being here. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Madison. Thanks for joining us today. Why don't you just kind of start letting us know, just give us a brief introduction, your background. I know you've been a part of the real estate industry for pretty much your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up in the real estate industry. My mom's been a realtor for, I want to say it's been about 23, 24 years now. And so growing up, I think that a lot of people, we tend to have like aunts and uncles that we aren't actually related to. But I call everyone my second mom because my mom has so many friends in the real estate industry that have been my aunt or my second mom. I like to say that I have 50 second moms, you know? And so I was really brought up by people in what we do, and it's bled into other arenas of my life in the most positive way, you know, for sure. But I never expected to get into this industry. I love it, but I never thought this is what I would end up doing, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, my mom being a realtor, I've been in every industry you can imagine, jack of all trades. I've been, like I said, and I've been in real estate. I was in finance for a while. I was in multimedia and marketing for doctors. I've been a dog groomer at some point. And so my breadth of understanding people very much varies. But when it comes to what really speaks to me and how do I feel that I can leave the greatest footprint on my community is through real estate.
Oh, okay. So, gotcha. Kind of like you, I kind of bounced around as well, did a lot of different, I guess, retail jobs. As of recently, I was working at Starbucks.
Really?
And yeah, and Starbucks was, I'm sure you can imagine how working there was. You know, you kind of come across so many different people, realtors, you know what I mean? Everyone needs coffee apparently, but also what comes with that is, you know, all the Karens and, you know, every single difficult customer you can imagine. For some reason, they love to choose Starbucks. So I'm not saying Starbucks is the only place that has difficult customers, but yeah, it was particularly challenging to deal with them. But I like how you kind of mentioned, like, you kind of were, you know, what I found in your story was you kind of bounced around until you found something that stuck. And I believe like people can relate to that. People maybe in a place where you were once at, where I was once at, where they're throwing shit at the wall and trying to find something that sticks, right? Mm-hmm. Could you expand more on that? Like, what led you to, because you've been around the industry for a while, then you ended up being in the industry even though you didn't first start out pursuing that.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it was one of those things. I think everybody's looking for a sense of belonging. It's a very human desire to have community, and we see that in other species besides humans, right? So we desire a sense of belonging, and we want to contribute value to whatever we're doing, right? But your presence may not be appreciated in whatever you're doing. And so it's essentially trial and error until you figure out that space where you feel valued and you feel as though you can provide value to others. And so for me, I grew up in a family where, my mom's been a realtor for a long time. My sister was a rep for Placer Title, just as I am now. My other sister, she works for a company here in the Central Valley that essentially their main client is realtors. And so when I was younger, to be perfectly honest, I kind of ran away from this industry because I just didn't want to feel like, you know, as though my destiny was already defined for me. And so I kept hopping around and feeling out different jobs, different careers. And I guess kind of all signs pointed to this ultimately. I have a degree in sociology, and my original intention with that was to go into law. So my dad's been an attorney for over 50 years, which is a very long time to do anything. And so I kind of figured, I'll be the lawyer and, I'll make my dad proud, follow his legacy type of thing. And then when I told him that that was my master plan, he was like, oh no, your life is actually not going to be how you want it to be. You should get into real estate like your mom because you'll have control of your time, you'll have freedom, you'll have more choice. And also, it's incredibly lucrative. And that was important to me to be able to have a great lifestyle. That way, when I, one day get married and have kids, that I'll be able to support them in a way that my parents were able to provide for me. And so I kind of I shied away from the idea. I was like, no, maybe I'll do this or that. And then about I think 2 years ago, my mom, she started her own real estate team here in Fresno. And essentially that they had gotten a contract for, a lot of leads, and they were doing really, really well, but they needed more people. They needed more agents. And, they started very humble beginnings, but my mom and her business partner at, past 65 years old have now created a great team of 40 plus agents.
Wow.
Within that 2 year time span. And so for me, getting into real estate, it wasn't something that I was like, I'm destined for this. I was built for this. I really ran away from it until there was an actual need to help my family in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we can all kind of attest to when our family is in need or they say that they could use your help, we want to be able to dive in if we're able to, right?
Right.
And so that's really what started my journey into this industry. I don't think I would have gotten into it otherwise, but I think that's kind of a common theme for a lot of people that end up doing what we do. I don't think a lot of people graduate high school and they're like, I'm going to be a realtor or I'm going to be a title rep. It's not really something that just strikes people on the head usually. It's something where someone they know or, a family member or some media they consume kind of sparks that idea of entrepreneurship in your community, and that's kind of what happened to me. And going back to my degree, my education, I learned all about redlining and blockbusting and the history of real estate and how it's progressed throughout the years in regards to discrimination and how, other people that in the past that may have not been able to purchase property are now have the freedom to and have the resources and the ability. And so I guess seeing that growth and change really spoke to me in a real way that made me want to get involved and kind of, put my footprint in there,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I believe a lot of people could relate to that. I in this same boat where, doing a lot of different things, hopping from job to job and like you said, when you feel like there's a need for your family, you feel that almost it's a pressure to kind of step up in a way,
Yeah.
And it may not always be I heard on a podcast once where the thing you're doing now may not be the thing that you'll do for the rest of your life, but it's going to lead to the thing. You know what I mean? And that always
Mhm.
stuck with me. Like the thing will always lead to the thing, and that's kind of what real estate is for me as well. I outside of this podcast, just kind of give context. I'm not sure if I mentioned on another podcast, but I am a realtor, just starting out in the industry. But yeah, it's an opportunity to kind of put yourself in a position that could help your family and also the community as well. Going to your real estate experience, I know you've been around the industry. We kind of touched on that already. Um, what is like your favorite part of being a part of the real estate industry? I know you said, why I got into it was, I thought you can create your own schedule,
Mhm.
and it's very lucrative, like you said. And those could be the very same reasons why you got into it as well. But
Right.
what are some of your, I guess, what's your favorite part about it?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like this right here is my favorite part of real estate. Like talking with people in my industry. To be perfectly, frank, like my partner, he's a realtor
Mm,
and my mom's a realtor. My sister was a rep. Everyone I grew up with is in this industry, and now being a young adult in real estate and specifically being a title rep, I get to see so many faces that I've never been able to meet or didn't have the opportunity to because I was so focused doing other things, like whether it be a different job or going through college or, being a realtor, even being a realtor, I was very focused on like my transactions and my clients. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you should do. But as a title rep specifically, I get to meet so many people and connect with so many people on different levels than I never would have before because my motivations are different, but my core values are the same. Like I'm always looking to see how can I understand people more, and that's kind of like the sociology, like psychology background. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what got like what my favorite element is. And a lot of people, I think they initially get into real estate thinking like, oh, dude, I'm gonna make buckets of dollars. Like, everyone thinks that they're gonna be balling, which they totally could. But I think as you start to help people more and you start to do more transactions and you get to meet more people, like that's kind of what claws you back in. Like real estate is not something, it's not for the weak, for sure. Like real estate's tough. Like to be perfectly honest,
right.
anyone who's in the industry can see that. And I think from an outsider's perspective, we see for sale signs everywhere. We see billboards of realtors and things like that. We just think that, there's so many agents, but when it comes down to it, we get to actually talk to the realtors in our community. We start to see like the struggle is real, and that's kind of where the building relationships comes in. Because when you're going through that struggle and you're feeling the hurt of what we do, you start to actually lean on each other and, you can talk war stories. You can talk about, how you were able to help this client, like get a home that fits their needs and you're a part of those milestones in their life, and
Right.
so, seeing a family like they're having their first baby and they need to have a new home that can support their lifestyle, things like that. Or people are retiring and they're downsizing. Being able to leave a mark that they're going to remember forever and then hopefully refer you to their friends in a sense because you were able to care for them as they needed you. That's huge.
Right.
And that's in a realtor capacity. My capacity is a little bit different, but regardless, like you get to see in a very tangible way like how you're affecting people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's definitely a people business for sure. Real estate, you know, David's kind of, I guess he's the leader of the Grow program there at Foxen, and I remember like I'm still starting off, but like I remember asking him like I want to know everything, like
Yeah.
I want to know how to um, I want to know because as a realtor, you get asked the question, what's the market like, So I wanted to be able to answer questions like that, as a new agent. And he told me like all you really need to do is just once you actually get activity going, that's when you start to learn the industry more. And a lot of the industry, a lot of the activity, really, it is like you said, is this interaction of just getting to know who else is in the industry, other agents
Right.
in your marketplace, title reps, as like yourself. How are I know you had a degree in, or you study sociology.
Mhm.
How much of that, I guess, helped you as far as like understanding and other people when it comes to developing relationships?
Yeah. I mean, sociology, so what it is, it's essentially the study of human beings on an on a macro scale, right? Like psychology is like looking into how does the brain work? How do people operate on an individual scale? Whereas sociology is understanding people at large. And there's this concept about institutions where basically we see how man creates institutions like say government, community. I don't know if you can hear my dog. She's
It's
like doing her
okay.
little thing.
She's trying to get in a
You basically,
podcast.
yeah, Mia, she's gonna be the star of the show. Um, we basically like for me, like I said, understanding communities and the Fresno real estate industry is so different than a lot of other markets. We've really created a hub here that's 100% based on relationships, and um, you know, for me, seeing that it helps me change my approach in what I do. Because anyone who's in sales, you can sell any product. Of course, you want to sell a product you believe in, but for me, like understanding the motivations of my market and understanding that institution, say the Central California, housing market, and understanding each element of it. Like for example, going to the Fresno Association of Realtors meetings. While as a title rep, that may, what's happening there may not affect me directly. It's affecting home buyers and home sellers and solar and, insurance, and understanding all these different moving pieces and what we do ultimately kind of funnels and affects my job, right? And so it's understanding the institution as a whole. That way I can see what piece I play in. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, it does. It's it's essential that relationships, as you it's essential to understand different communities, different pockets of communities. That way you know
Right.
how to, I guess, serve them in the best way that fits their needs. And so I
Right.
mean that's pretty much sales. um, Let me ask you this: as far as like relationships goes, when you're cultivating relationships, and did you ever have like a struggle with like not making it transactional when you're developing and cultivating relationships?
So I think that's a struggle that I could see people having, but I think I actually had the opposite struggle where I almost felt bad for being too businessy. I didn't want people to feel like I was just a salesperson.
Yeah.
And so it could be either way because I feel like and it's a spectrum, but on
Hmm.
one end we have like the hyper entrepreneur type, like hustle culture, like let's get that bag type of thing, and
Right.
people are kind of like on the bottom of the totem pole, whereas like the deal is at the top, and it can just feel you can feel very detached from who you're working with.
Hmm.
Whereas kind of there's that other end of the spectrum where it's like, oh, I want to be their friend. I don't want them to dislike me because I don't have good news for them. The deal's falling apart and I don't want them to be mad at me type of
Yeah.
thing, you know? And so I think I've reached probably on both ends. Not in not in the real estate industry. Back when I was in marketing, I think that I fell a little bit more into that, like I just want the deal, transactional type of energy
Hmm.
versus people first. But that was also, to be perfectly honest, that was also kind of based on who I was surrounding myself with. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like the law of association. John Maxwell's kind
Yeah.
of coined that term, law of association. I was around a lot of people that were that like dog eat dog corporate sales life type of attitude,
Hmm.
where that's not like my natural mode of operation, but because that was what I was around, that's kind of just what I got used to,
Hmm.
you know? Whereas now I'm very much in a culture that puts people first. Like we like to joke that Plaster Title Company, PTC, stands for people that care, because obviously we want to, we have a service that, we provide, but for us, people come first. And so I think a lot of it is just kind of based on who you're around.
Yeah.
Do
No, that
you feel
make
like that? Was that a struggle for you?
now it's not so much. Um, I do agree. It's definitely that law of association and osmosis, right? Like you always hear the term like whoever you surround yourself with, that's how you're going to be in the next 5 years. Whatever that saying,
Yeah.
however that goes, or whatever. But yeah, I think for me it's a struggle. I think it's also like a case by case scenario. I think that it's more so on the psychology side of things where someone might see sales like in the real estate industry as black or white. You know what I mean? And they may be trying to be more transactional than relational. And
Right.
I agree. Fresno is like so damn big, but it's not at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you can't be that way in Fresno where you can't be
Mm-mm.
transactional. You definitely have to nurture relationships. And so that leads me to ask you this, like when it comes to nurturing relationships, what do you have any advice? I feel like you're naturally good at relationships. Like you just kind of have that aura about you.
Well, it's funny. Back in the day, I was not a people person at all. Like, I remember I was going on a field trip probably when I was 16, and someone told me like, please just try to, be nice, just have a good day. They just knew that like I wasn't natural. I was pretty introverted.
Mm.
And I don't know where this flip kind of switched. I kind of made an active decision to start to get to know people more, and I'll see the benefit of it as I grow you know a higher sense of extroversion, I guess. To me, honestly, I think it's actively listening and trying to understand people's motivations when they're speaking to you. I would like to say that like I'm a highly aware person. I'm pretty analytical, not in a critical sense, but just in a trying to understand
Yeah.
sense. I'm very observant. And when you're talking to people a little bit more at length, not like if they're ordering a coffee from you, you're not really going to figure that out. But as you're able to sit down with someone and I guess just like continuously asking questions, like here this conversation, as a guest on the podcast, I'm trying to share my experience, but I'd like to say in a general sense, when I'm getting to know someone, I try to talk about me as little as I can. I want to get to know them. Because everyone's favorite word is me.
Hmm.
Everyone's favorite word is their own name. And if I'm trying to add value to you and I'm trying to get to know you, I don't matter here. If you ask me a question about myself, I'll respond, of
Hmm.
course. It's give and take, and the more information you give about yourself and the more personal, the more people feel as though they can trust to give you information as well, right?
Right.
And so I think it's just asking good questions, trying to get further in depth, and over time they'll confide in you, or they'll give you their motivation for why they're doing what they're doing, and they'll start to trust you, you know.
Hmm.
And I mean, there's nothing to lose when it comes to adding people to your network. I mean,
Yeah.
the next person you meet could be your next best friend, it could be your next client, it could be you never know.
Right.
And so just being very open minded and actively listening to what they have to say and being interested in them. And something that I heard somewhat recently was the more interested you are into someone, the more interesting you will seem.
Mm-hmm.
So, no one wants to come off and seem one dimensional, right? I think someone who's in sales, we try to, have some life to us because people connect that way, you know? And so if you want to, show interest to be interesting,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. I love that.
But
It's definitely, I've heard that a lot too. Like, I'm sure, I don't know, do you read books a lot at all?
yeah,
Have you heard of the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People?
yep, Dale Carnegie.
Yep. All time, probably my favorite book of all time because it
Yeah,
literally talks about what you just said. It's to be interesting, be interested. And
right,
it's huge, especially, I think not even just sales, just in life in general. At the
right,
end of the day, we need each other no matter, I always thought of it this way, like no matter what you do, like for a job wise, it's always for somebody else. It's always serving the need of somebody else. You know what I mean?
right,
And so it's hard because I used to be very transactional too because it's hard to detach from that transactional, I guess, mindset into, oh, let me do this because this is going to serve this person and it's going to add value to them. And so when you come from that place of let me serve you because um, because it's needed and it's going to add value to you, I think that just makes your relationship with that person just solid. You know what I mean?
right,
Yeah.
right. And as you grow in this industry, because I know that you're newer to real estate, and I'd love to chat more about that. Um, the more you begin to realize that the people are the best part of this.
Hmm.
Being like what I do now personally,
Hmm.
like I firmly believe that like this job was made for me.
Yeah.
Being a marketing rep for Placer, because it's there. It's just like it's the best people. The company has great values.
Hmm.
And our services work. Everyone that I work with is so incredibly skilled and gifted at what they do, and you know believe in it wholeheartedly and work so hard.
Hmm.
And just to be associated with them is great, and finding that niche where you fit in and you feel like this is my spot, that it can be really hard. And I feel very blessed to have found it at a young age.
Yeah.
And they statistically, people change their careers 2 to 3 times throughout their lifetime,
Hmm.
you know and I think when you stop fighting, you know what's happening around you, like when you stop trying to fight with with what is supposed to happen for you, that's when everything starts to fall into
Hmm.
line.
Yeah.
Like I know people talk about manifestation or intention. I think most people believe that they have a purpose, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't want to think that I have no purpose in life. I want to think that there's a reason why I'm here and I can, benefit someone in some degree, you
Hmm.
know. And when you kind of just, not saying don't work hard, don't put in the muscle, for sure do, but stop resisting. Like let whatever's supposed to happen happen. And like you said, what the thing that got you here is the thing that's going to lead you to the next, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you're just laying down those rocks and everything will naturally lead you to where you're supposed to go.
Hmm.
And that's kind of just what happened here. Um, but being a young agent, like just lean on the people around you,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
like David, like us, like me for title and escrow information,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just support.
Let's go ahead and park there then. I keep wanting, I keep on wanting to say place or title, but it's not that, right? How do you say it again?
No, it's placer title.
Placer title. Placer title is
Mhm.
title and escrow company, correct?
Yes.
And title and escrow are key parts of the real estate transaction for the people listening. Could you break that down a little bit more? Like, what does that even mean? Like, why is that important to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when people think of real estate, like buying a house, for people who are in the industry, it can be kind of confusing for who are the key players in a real estate transaction, especially title and escrow. If I weren't doing what I'm doing, if when I would look at buildings that said placer title, like I didn't know what that really meant, you know? So title and escrow is a neutral third party between the bank and everyone else in the transaction. So your realtors, your lenders, home warranty, whoever has a hand in the sale. And essentially we hold on to the money to make sure that when it's dispersed that the title is free and clear. So basically when we're talking about the title of a property, it means the ownership, the physical ownership and the documented ownership. So something that could affect title is is any liens on a property. Could be a tax lien, could be, there's a mortgage that hasn't been paid for a long time, even child support that hasn't been paid for. Anything that could affect the reconveyance of the property, any encumbrances. So basically, like, say for example, you and I were in a poker game, and as my bet, I said, Matthew, I owe you the deed to my house, and I give it to you. And then I'm trying to sell my property to someone else. You could come to me and say, no, I actually am owed the property because of this napkin or because
Mm-hmm.
of this note that you wrote me.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's title's job to make sure that anything that's publicly disclosed, any public information like any liens, child support, there's nothing that could affect the sale of the house, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Child
And
support,
so,
that can affect the sale of it, like a really.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
So if someone has child support that they haven't paid, essentially a lien can be placed on the house saying, "Hey, you owe money. We could take that money from the house in a
Oh,
way."
okay, gotcha. Interesting.
So, yeah, so they'll basically prevent the sale. So we essentially we offer title insurance, and a common misconception about title insurance is that it's for a short duration. Basically, from the date of record, so from essentially the point of sale to the past, we will insure it and we will insure the property so that no one can come and say, hey, this house isn't actually yours because the person who sold it to you didn't actually own it. Or, whatever crazy situation that comes about. Essentially, we will insure it and try to resolve that issue for you. Also, so it's that point of sale back in time, and then from the point of sale to the future. So through the ownership of your property, anything that comes up, we insure that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, and going into a little further in depth of why title insurance is really cool, because not only does it protect you in that regard, but you know how car insurance is like you pay monthly and it's only insured from, month, bill cycle to bill cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So title insurance is paid at closing by the seller. So essentially, the buyer is protected their entire lifetime because the seller paid for them to be insured. So it's not like you're billed monthly and you're only protected for as long as you pay for it. You pay for it once and you're protected for the rest of your life.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So basically, when it comes to like mortgages or purchasing property, title is you're purchasing the protection for a lifetime as opposed to like car insurance. Sometimes, they're monthly or 6 months or a year, right?
Right. So basically, what title and escrow does, to sum it up, very like Spark Notes
There
edition, we basically just make sure that no one else can claim rights to the property.
you go. Gotcha. It's like the pink slip to the house.
Pretty much. It's a
Gotcha.
pink slip, and we're just making sure that no one else has any claims on it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And what happens when something does come up? There, it cancels the transaction.
Not necessarily. No, no. The escrow officers, they'll go to bat and they'll essentially try to do everything that they can to make sure that we can keep the transaction moving forward as long as, our clients want it to. As long as the buyer and seller, are still in agreement, the escrow officer and our title officers will do everything they can to, resolve any encumbrances on the property or anything that could be affecting the sale. And something that's really cool about Placer Title is that we actually have title officers on our campus, or like in our office, in our physical workplace. And during COVID, a lot of people started working from home, and that's kind of commonplace. But Placer, everybody works in the office. We're all in, great communication, and anything that could be obstructing a sale, we'll do anything we can to make sure that it happens.
Gotcha. Okay. So they're pretty much, you guys will go to bat for both the buyer, pretty much the buyer, right? And the seller.
Buyer and seller.
Buyer and seller.
Because escrow is a neutral third party.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to anyone involved in the transaction, we can't and we don't favor anyone there. So say, we have a listing agent and the selling agent. We can't favor either one just because we like either of them more. Mm-hmm. Or we can't tell you who to use for anything, nor should we, because we are neutral. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so that makes sense.
Yes. So it's just that neutral third party, unbiased, that both everyone in the transaction is pretty much trusting to make sure it goes smooth.
Right. So we handle all of the written instructions in a transaction. So while we have the realtors that initiate the sale, right? They come up with a contract, they agree to certain terms. We'll sell this house for X, Y, and Z to this person. We then get the contract, and we basically just make sure that no one else has any rights over that property while you're trying to sell it. It's like we kind of said, it's like selling a car. Say someone else rolls up and they have the pink slip, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Title and escrow, we make sure that no one else has the pink slip to your car.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But the house. And so we handle all the written instructions. We make sure that everybody plays nice in the sandbox while we're trying to get the house sold. Mm-hmm. And then after making sure that everything is free and clear, all of the lending has been underwritten, someone's taking out a loan. Once all the funds are ready and everything's clear to close, essentially we disperse those funds and we sign documents saying like, okay, no one else has any rights. The funds are here. Everything's in agreement. Here you go. Here's your house. Congratulations.
Gotcha. Are there any like common situations that come up that buyers and sellers may experience when working with title and escrow companies?
Well, transactions, just like every transaction is a little bit different, and so while there isn't really a necessarily like one size fits all answer to that. Of course, there's like kind of the natural steps in an escrow, like submitting your earnest money deposit. There's commonplace things that are going to happen, but every transaction is going to be a little bit different. And that's where you really need to rely on your real estate professionals. And, and when I say real estate professionals, I don't just mean your realtors, your lenders, your home warranty, your title and escrow. That's where you really need to make sure that you kind of have your dream team. You have people that you can rely on for education and information, because it's their job to provide it for you. Yeah. Because every situation looks a little bit different, right? So I mean, common things you're going to see, like I said, it's going to be that earnest money deposit. We're going to see a preliminary title report where we basically get to see, is there anything about the property that's publicly disclosed that could affect the transaction? Like, for example, say someone wants to build a pool. They're buying a house and they want to buy a pool. Like the entire reason why they're buying this house is because they want that pool. Basically, on the preliminary title report, it might tell us, hey, 5 feet from your fence is a power line, so you're not allowed to drill within say, I don't know, 50 feet of that power line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that basically means your dream of a pool is completely knocked to the ground. So do you still want to buy that house? You know,
Mm-hmm.
information like that is vital to the client if they're not aware,
Right,
And
right.
so it's just disclosing all the public information about the property possible, and everything looks a little bit different,
Yeah, yeah.
and so just kind of just doing your homework and making sure that you have the right real estate professionals around you to, get through that transaction. So
Gotcha. Okay. So
does
it'll
that
be
make sense? Does it answer your question?
it does. It seems like a lot of the times, at least what I'm hearing is most of the time consumers, or not consumers, but like home buyers and sellers, they are kind of detached from these situations. Most of the time it's going to be their realtors dealing, kind of communicating with title and escrow companies, right?
Not necessarily. So the escrow officers and realtors and lenders and everyone involved, they should be in heavy communication.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should, know where everything's standing. But more so, it's not that it's closed off to the client. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
they're not privy to that information.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so you should be able to work with people that you trust to communicate on your behalf. Not on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf, excuse me, that wasn't necessarily right. They should be able to communicate your needs,
Mm, gotcha.
if that makes sense.
By
And
they, you
so
mean like the real estate professionals?
your
Yeah.
escrow officers, your realtor, your lender, they should all be on the same page, is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Okay.
so just trusting who you're working with. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Going into kind of the real estate side of things from your experience, and also using your title and escrow experience at Placer Title, what are some things, I guess, advice you can give to first time home buyers?
I would say advice to first time homebuyers. I would say get educated by people in the industry. I think a lot of people will go to, someone that they know, could be their parents, could be, their friend, could be social media, Google,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll try to understand the process of buying a home just from the internet or just from people that they know. Whereas people that are in our industry and what we do, this is our everyday life. We are
Mm-hmm.
constantly connected to what's happening in our market, in our industry, the documents that are changing, the laws that are changing. So when it comes to understanding what's happening right now, someone who bought a house 20 years ago, like your parents, they're not going to really know the market right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So just understanding or getting to know realtors and even shopping around, work with someone that you trust, don't be afraid to, talk to different realtors, or, go and meet different escrow officers. Um, do your homework on finding someone to represent you well that you connect with and you can trust.
Mm, okay.
And also, like people who are trying to buy a house for the first time, there's a lot of resources available that they may not know about, like down payment assistance,
Mm-hmm.
or different, lending 2-1 buy downs, learning about what does lending look like, what do I actually qualify for, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then in escrow, you know, being in having communication with everyone. So just find people you can trust with, shop around, get your information from someone who's working in the industry and is educating themselves too.
Okay, gotcha. When it comes to finding somebody, how does somebody know they found like a good agent, I guess?
Yeah. I think that'll kind of look different for everyone, you know. Realtors come in all shapes and sizes,
Mm-hmm.
and so do escrow officers and lenders. Um, I would say you'll know you find the right one when you can openly discuss your your wants, desires, and also the things that maybe scare you a bit, or, the uncomfortable things. Reviews are also great, being able to see, do other people back them too? Have other people had good experiences? And ultimately, do they sound like they know what they're talking about? Do they have experience? Have they been on transactions before? And even for younger realtors that are just starting out, obviously you may not have that experience, but your heart could be there to learn, you know? And so I think you found the right realtor when you connect with them. You can openly communicate about your needs and also the things that you don't want or the things that might be troubling you. And so it's kind of you'll just kind of know, I think.
Yeah, I, I see. It's more of that feeling and how much that, I guess, that agent or real estate professional is really there to kind of nourish that relationship with you. So I
Right.
can I can totally see that. How about your own personal real estate experience? What was, I guess, your biggest lesson that you learned?
Oh man, what's my biggest lesson that I learned? Okay, so I'm going to give you a little analogy here. So last 4th of July, actually, I broke my leg in a total freak accident.
Oh
And
gosh.
actually, I was in like a 3-week time span where I was in a hit and run on the highway by a drunk driver.
Oh
A week
gosh.
later, the relationship I was in ended, and then a week after that, I broke my leg.
Oh my gosh.
And I was feeling really down and really sorry for myself, you know, type of thing. And it was really tough. For months, I wasn't able to walk. I had to have my leg out straight for 3 months. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. But then a year later, I absolutely love my life. I was feeling terrible about myself, but now I really love my life. And all of that pain was worth it. And if I had to go back then, like say last year, I could look at where I'd be in a year from now and that moment of hurt, and I could see a year from now, like, oh, not to say that breaking your leg's not worth it, but going through that struggle, going, having that willingness to sit in the hurt but still move forward, that's just like real estate. There's seasons of what we do that are really, really tough. And a lot of people might leave and, leave the industry because real estate is kind of crazy. It's great, but it's kind of crazy. And so I think a lot of people who get into what we do, if they're just willing to push through those valleys and push through those uncomfortable seasons, they'll see that it's worth it. And if they, in those moments where they're really like, dude, I don't know. This is kind of hard. This is not what I signed up for. It's a lot more work than I thought it would be. If you could just push through and see what's on the other side of that, you'll thank yourself later. It's delaying your gratification, you know?
It's huge. What
Yeah.
about your mom? Her being in the industry for so long. What did you learn from her experience that you apply to your own real estate experience?
100% her work ethic. So being in title and escrow, I I don't have how do I say this? I'm very objective with my relationship with my mom. Just because she's a realtor, I don't favor her in any way. I don't do anything for her team that I wouldn't do for anyone else. Um, if anything, I try to detach more because I don't want to, like I said, neutral third party. I cannot be in any way, you know, favored favoriting anyone. Um, so in terms of like her application to me now is minimal, except for the values that she's instilled in me as a realtor and as a mom. And that's more so being a kid. I never understood why she worked so hard.
Mm-hmm.
She would be doing showings on the weekends, open houses, home late, early mornings, whatever it may be. And when I was younger, I think kids struggle with parents that are, busy.
Mm-hmm.
But now being an adult and seeing all the sacrifices that she made in order to, being a mom isn't just like being physically there. It's about providing and it's about,
Mm-hmm.
instilling your beliefs, right? So seeing her work ethic and seeing how people revere her in our industry
Mm-hmm.
and respect her, um, that's what I've learned the most. And um, to be, and not to say that other people's opinions of you are, is something that you should be highly concerned of. Of course, I think most people want to be kind and, operate in a way that you'll be likable.
Mm-hmm.
But operating off of that strong work ethic and being an authentic person, being a genuine, like authentically good person,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's a
Well,
part of, you were talking about feeling transactional. That's kind of where that comes in. At the end of the day, do you want to put your head on the pillow feeling like you're detached from who you're working with?
mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think you should. Right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I've met your mom yet. What's her name?
Her name is Gail.
Gail.
She is the best. I won't get I'll talk to you about it later, but she's a great mom.
Okay.
And so I'm really grateful for her for getting me into this, but
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
now I'm all title and escrow.
There you go. What's
So,
what made you transition? If you want to get into that.
yeah, absolutely. So, to be perfectly honest, I didn't ever think that I would leave being a realtor just because I being an agent, I kind of assumed that that was everything I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was made aware of an opening at Placer Title, and I've always, had really strong admiration for the company just because I knew a lot of people that worked there, and I knew what Placer Title, like I knew what they stood for, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of their values and how they operated. And so when I was presented with the opportunity to interview to be a sales rep, I jumped on it because, one, it's a great thing to have different industry experience. When I was a realtor, I didn't see how heavily escrow officers and lenders, and I didn't see how, maybe lenders, but I didn't see how much a good escrow officer can make or break a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And now being in my position and like being able to learn more about it, I get to understand different roles of real estate a lot more. And then also I've mentioned that I'm a really big people person at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have more availability to meet more people and understand more people in what we do than ever before. Like for me now, there's a lot of emphasis in my life to attend, different industry meetings like the MLS meeting on Tuesday mornings or different events that are happening that are, I mean, they're educational events, like the diversity events thrown by far and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. And so I knew that I'd be able to do everything that I loved in real estate, um, but do it on a different capacity. Like for me, the capacity I wanted to be in real estate in was working with a lot of people and being able
Mm-hmm.
to build more relationships. So like being an agent, you're doing a lot of open houses, you're showing clients, you're doing all of that stuff, you're working transactions at a time. Whereas now I get to see like tons of transactions go on and I get to meet more people and it's
Mm-hmm.
just more availability for the specific things I like to do in real estate.
Gotcha. Okay. It's
Yeah.
it sounds like it was a segue for you to, like you said, just meet more people in a capacity that
Yeah.
it didn't allow you to do as an agent, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
like I think as you work in different roles, you get to see more of your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I am not a detail person. Like I could never be like an accountant or someone that, like even escrow officers, they're so meticulous and organized, and they read all the black and white. I'm here in like the gray area, like la la la, I love my friends, you know? And so being a title rep, it just gets me to meet more people. I let escrow officers and title officers handle,
Hmm.
the hard structured facts, whereas I get to be, more of the personal side of things, and I get to be more involved in the community than ever before.
Are you like? I know you said you're like you're the sales rep. So are you the
Mhm.
beginning? Are you are you at the beginning of the sales process?
And sometimes,
The top of the funnel, I
um,
guess. Right.
so basically, the way that I operate is I build relationships with people, with realtors and lenders.
Hmm.
And essentially, I help you to get to know our company and our escrow officers. That way, when you have an escrow, say you have a listing and you're selling it, you you decide that you want to work with our escrow officers because you already know and trust our company,
Hmm.
and you know that we're able to take care of your escrow needs.
Gotcha.
Um, some people they'll go directly to the escrow officers because they already have a relationship with them,
Hmm.
or they have a referral from another agent that they know and said, hey, this escrow officer was awesome, can I please work with them? So
Mm.
sometimes I go directly to escrow, but a lot of the times they go directly to me and say, hey, Madison, I want to open escrow with Placer Title, who do you think I should work with? And then that's when I
Mm.
get to really, and that's where that relationship really comes in, where I get to see, like, okay, I know this person's personality, I know that what they would want in an escrow officer, who do I think that I should place them with?
Gotcha.
But I mean, truly, anyone at Placer is incredible.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, we have, like, some of our escrow officers have 40 years plus of experience,
Wow.
in escrow.
Hmm.
Right.
Longer than both of us have been alive.
Right.
um, yeah, that sounds like what I do full time as well. I don't. So currently, I work full time doing sales development for a property management tech company, and
Oh,
then
really?
yeah, and so I do cold calling. I'm not sure if you do a lot of cold calling as well, but
Oh my
I
gosh,
do.
brutal.
Yeah. um, I mean, either way, like I tried cold calling as an agent as well, and it's more challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of sounds like similar to what I do. Just kind of you're building relationships to then hand off to escrow officers, right?
Right. Like for you, I mean, I was a BDR at one point in
Okay.
finance.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was also cold calling, and then, you transfer them to like a sales manager or someone that, closes the deal or whatever.
Hmm.
And, you know, there, I mean, I'm sure it's a ton of volume in terms of like the amount of calls you're doing per day, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have 100 as our quota to make a daily,
Yeah.
but we changed the way they're paying us now, commission wise. But yeah, that's kind of like besides the point. I
Oh
just
no. I
yeah,
mean,
I just thought
no,
because
that's
it
crazy.
sounded similar to what you were doing, well, for what you do now.
I mean, yeah. So, how we kind of talked before about like everything you do kind of leads you to where you're supposed to go.
Hmm.
Like, I really do think that I don't think cold calling was like the best use of my skill set.
Hmm.
I did it, and I think that it helped toughen me up because, I mean, let's get real, cold calling is it can be pretty tough.
You
And
have to
back
have
when
thick
I was
skin.
doing that, yeah, you do. And back when I was doing it, my quota was 100 calls a day.
Okay.
I mean, this was like during this was right before COVID, I think.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know, it toughens you up. But I mean, you're a realtor now, right? You're gonna start
Yeah. Yeah.
cracking deals, and
Exactly. Let's
yeah.
as we kind of wrap up here, Madison. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that is kind of on your heart that you know like I need somebody who's listening to this podcast or watching it, I need to know this, about home buying or this about the real estate industry, what is something that, if you have anything, what is something
Yeah,
that you want to say?
100%. So I know that I talk about like a lot about relationships, and that's because I wholeheartedly believe that I can contribute every ounce of success I've ever had in my life to the people in my life. Whether it be like mentors, coaches, teachers, parents,
Mm-hmm.
people, industry leaders. Get people around you that are honest about their struggles. Get
Mm.
people around you that you can learn from. Be the best interviewer you can be. If
Mm-hmm.
you're around someone you admire, you're around someone that is doing better than you, don't get competitive. Be an interviewer. Get to know how they got to where they are. Leverage those relationships the best you can, not in a transactional way, not in a, you know, you're just getting to know them and you're going to hitch a hike off the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Get to know people, find people that can support you and find people that you can have rally behind you and do the same. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, something that truly changed my perspective in real estate, in title and escrow, and in being a realtor. It was a group called YPN. It's a Young
Mm-hmm.
Professionals Network. And for me, getting around, because you don't get to dictate who's on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, you don't get to dictate who your coworkers are. You don't get to dictate who you're around a lot of the time. Your clients, you just accept a lot of what's just coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but actively choosing to be around people that are, you know, kind of in the same place as you is huge because you get to celebrate their wins, they celebrate yours. You get to see their struggles and learn from it. They learn from yours.
Mm-hmm.
Like just get good authentic people around you. That way when the big challenges do come up, like you don't feel like you're falling by yourself.
Mm. That's huge. Have you ever been around, I guess, people who, I guess, you didn't mesh well with, or like they just didn't support your growth in a way? Do you get where I'm going with
Oh
this?
yeah.
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 I mean, I think there's 8 billion people on the planet. We're not naturally going to like, be best friends with everyone,
Yeah.
you know, but ultimately, like what we do here, while of course we want to enjoy who we work with and we want to enjoy what we do,
Mm-hmm.
we don't get to choose the personalities around us.
Mm-hmm.
So in a real estate capacity, be professional, do what you have to do, walk with your best foot forward because you never know who you're going to work with again,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
especially like we said, like Fresno is the biggest small town you're ever going to find,
Absolutely.
So, you know, like when it comes to me and people and like relationships, I treat people based on my character.
Mm.
If someone, say hypothetically is not nice or, whatever it may be, it's not within my character to reciprocate that. I'm always going to move in the best way I can and treat people the best way I can because that's who I decided I am, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it's forget the noise, be you, find people that appreciate you, lean on other people, learn from others, and everything will just kind of fall into place.
Yeah. Yeah. Just pretty much stay true to yourself, your
Yeah.
values, and
Yeah,
the right people will come along, right?
totally. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do is that there are so many different types of people, and we all have different journeys, we all have different stories, but at the end of the day our goal is hopefully the same, and that's to get someone into a new home.
Mm-hmm.
And so like let's put our best thinking caps together and you know and cheer each other on.
Absolutely. Madison, at the end of every podcast, I ask 3 questions. And this is going to have nothing to do with real estate or any of that, but these are just very kind of like fun questions I like to ask. And
Sure.
um, the first one is, what do you define as success?
So success to me isn't necessarily like and this is kind of cookie cutter. I think everybody defines, like, I don't view success as just like, something that I can write down on paper. Like, I have a great family. I have this much money. I can retire at this age. I think success is more of a feeling,
Mm.
and emotions come and go for sure. But I think success happens every day, and when you put your head on the pillow, you're happy with who you were that day,
Mm.
you know, because you're going to have days where things fall apart. You're going to have days where, you know, things didn't go your way, but at the end of the day, you've put in your best effort to be 1% closer to the version of yourself you want to be. That's
Mm-hmm.
success right there.
I
Because,
love it.
I mean, let's be real. No one's going to feel finished. No one's going to
Mm.
be like, all right, this is the best version of myself. I'm done.
Yeah.
So success is a constant,
Mm-hmm.
chase. And
Yeah.
so if you understand that, there isn't a landing, a landing pad for success.
Yeah.
You're chasing success every day.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Every time I ask that question, there's always something different, and I love asking
Oh, I'm sure.
it.
They're like, I'm
uh,
a trillionaire. That's how I
yeah,
know.
exactly, exactly. It's super interesting to see the answers that you get. Um, Next one, what do you define as love?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. That's kind of okay. I mean, love comes in different manners and capacities, but loaded question, dude.
I know. That's what I'm here for.
I think love, I think it's the willingness to accept and appreciate things, people, and life as it is.
That unconditional love.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard. I mean, human beings were naturally flawed, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that unconditional love can be hard to achieve sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But love is seen in understanding and acceptance and appreciating the people around you, you know, what you do. And love is a verb, right? We act it out in what we do. And so you have to, it's, like I said, man, and now I'm just rambling. It's like that was
It's
so
all
loaded.
good.
I'm like,
It's
I'm
all
like
good.
chasing the air for an answer.
It's all good. I mean, I love hearing just what people have on their heart to say.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I kind of left it ambiguous when I sent you the outline because I didn't want you to think about it. I want, just in the moment answers. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful what you said, though. I don't
Thank
think there's a
you.
right or wrong answer. I mean, I think that's what love is as well. Love is it's multifaceted. That's why
Yeah.
the previous question I asked you, that's multifaceted as well. This question's going to
Yeah.
have so many different answers, so many different responses,
Sure.
and I think each and every one of us is a piece of the puzzle. The
Yeah.
more we continue to ask this question, the more of an idea of what we can get, what someone else is thinking when it comes to love, when it
Right.
comes to success. And so I like
Right.
your answer. It's more about accepting who that person is, and that's challenging to hear sometimes. Like
Yeah.
you may not, let's kind of go back to what you said earlier. Like, you don't get to choose the people you're surrounded with, in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, and you're probably more talking about, like, you don't get to choose who they are, like, as a person. You know what I mean?
Right.
Who they are is uh, an accumulation of their entire life experience, people they've come across, and you can't say, I don't like you because you're like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's love is just like, okay, this is who you are. I accept you, and I'm not going to try to change you.
Yeah. Totally.
One last question. It's kind of a big one
Okay.
too.
Oh my gosh, you're making me sweat over here.
I'm sorry. Um, what is like? Why are we here? What is our purpose as humans? I guess.
Okay, Gandhi. I think, I think that this question could be answered. I mean, all of these could be answered in a ton of different ways.
Yeah.
And like I personally, like I think a lot of people tend to look to their faith, like their, maybe religion as kind of their guidance on this question.
Hmm.
But to be perfectly honest, I think it's to gain experiences and learn from one another, and hopefully by the end of your life you've gotten a full breadth understanding of humanity. And you know
Yeah. No.
and it's kind of like reaching that higher level of enlightenment
Hmm.
by going through the struggles, seeing other people's struggles, and at the end of all of it you reach that pinnacle of like altruism,
Hmm.
to understand like like we're never going to fully know, and maybe one day in the future, and when we're all gone and past,
Hmm.
we'll get that answer from the big guy upstairs. But I think the purpose of humanity is just like live, learn, and love.
I love it. And alliteration.
There you go.
I love it. Live, learn, and love to continue just to experience life with each other. I love it. Well, those were the big three closing questions. But before we kind of sign off here, Madison, I'm not sure. I usually ask this to other people who are like creating content, because outside of this podcast, I also have conversations with like content creators that.
Mhm.
Anyways, but where can people find you if you want to be found? What are you working on next? And yeah.
Yeah. So I can be found on Instagram. It's Madison. Oh my gosh, I don't even know my own social media.
It's all
That's really
good.
sad. So my Instagram, for everyone who would like to know, for title and escrow,
Hmm.
it's Madison underscore plaster title. So if anyone has any questions about, you know, further understanding title and escrow, getting to know our escrow officers, anything in that capacity, you can find me there. Um, and so that's just an easy way. I also have my business card for anyone who might possibly need it. I have a digital one that I can send to you, and my phone number and email as well. And that's pretty much it. You can also find me at the Placer Title office, but I'm not ever really there because I'm out supporting agents like you and like others. So yeah, that's pretty much me. What's going on next? Just rocking and rolling, continuing to participate in our community, our real estate community, and help cheer on agents and what we do.
Love it. Well, thanks,
Yeah,
Madison, for hopping on.
yeah.
I think
Thanks
we
for
had
having me.
a productive conversation. I think there was a lot of value that was said here. And well, yeah, we'll connect in the future, I'm sure, on a transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Matthew. Have a great one.
Hey, thanks for sticking all the way through. If you enjoyed that piece of content right there, don't forget to like the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Comment below your favorite parts, or maybe if you have a question about what was discussed and talked about. Either way, I really appreciate you for being here. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.